Chapter 13, The Knife Holder. On the top of the sacred mountain, another 7 years passed, and the connection between heaven and earth temporarily stopped. After the great king of gods vented his desires, he began to wander aimlessly on the earth again. At this time, he found it a bit boring, because there were no children to be his toys. In desperation, Uranus had to use his divine power to bombard everything he saw at will and then find a little fun in the destruction. After he left, Gaia still lay on the top of the sacred mountain. She tried her best to reduce her consumption, but it was meaningless. Visibly, her immortal body began to age. She knew she had to do something, so in her body, where the 12 children were, the Earth Mother made a request. "You see, this is your father, the God King of Chaos. He hurt me and imprisoned you. If it goes on like this, when I fall into eternal sleep, you will stay here forever, maintaining a state between life and death." There was hatred in the calm tone of the Earth Mother. Every minute and every second, she could feel the loss of power. Her spirit was watching the 12 gods. That was her last hope. "I need a warrior," Gaia said. "I need one of you to have the courage to rebel against your father." This is also part of the prophecy. The father will be shaken by his own offspring. You are destined to succeed. There was a silence, and in the silence, Rhea's voice sounded hesitantly. "Mother, we are willing to share your worries, but the eldest son, but not the oldest, we do not meet this condition." The other Titans thought the same. Thousands of years have passed, and they still have not understood the meaning of this sentence. "No, you meet it." Unlike the Titans, just before, when the atrocities of the God King ended, the Earth Mother suddenly understood the true meaning of the prophecy. "The eldest son, but not the oldest, now is the time for him to appear. Whoever agrees to my request will be the first to leave my body. You will be conceived again by the order of the God King, and the position of the eldest son will be rearranged." When the Earth Mother's voice fell, the gods were a little shocked. It was not until this moment that they deeply felt the power of fate. As early as the banquet 2,500 years ago, everything had been revealed. They would be conceived again, so the eldest son was not the oldest one. "But we have no weapons." Hyperion seemed to have some ideas, but also a little hesitant. As the only son now, he was not inferior to his elder brother and younger brother before his priesthood was divided. If he could become the god who defeated Uranus, he might also have the hope of inheriting the throne of the King of Gods. "The knife in the prophecy, it's ready." Mother Earth said again. "The King of Gods ordered all weapons in the world to be sensed by him, so I used flint to breed a sickle. It has never appeared in the world, and its original intention was to harvest plants, so it is not a weapon. It is not forged, it is naturally generated, so it has no caster, it is a natural product." The gods were silent again. They did not expect that the relative who assisted the rebellion in the prophecy was actually Gaia. Not one of their brothers, nor the uncle who incarnated the mountains and the deep sea, but the mother who gave birth to them in front of them. Yes, nothing is more suitable for relatives than husband and wife. "But we made an oath." Before Hyperion spoke, Thea pointed out the key to the problem. Among the 12 Titans, she and Hyperion were the closest. Therefore, she did not want to see her brother be tempted by the position of the God King and make the wrong decision. The Earth Mother was speechless about the facts told by Thea. At this time, the guardian of the oath had not yet appeared, the Styx River had not yet been born, and the world had not yet delegated the authority to keep the oath. At this time, breaking the oath was a terrible thing. If the prophecy showed that the person holding the knife was destined to become the next generation of the God King, the 12 Titans would never hesitate, and they would fight for the qualification to hold the knife. But since the position of the God King was uncertain, no one was willing to bear the consequences of breaking the oath. After all, becoming the God King, the supreme divine power can make up for the damaged divine duties. But if the person wielding the knife is just a favor, the gods are not willing to take this risk. And the most important thing, which the Earth Mother has not mentioned yet, is that shaking the royal power may not be equal to subverting the royal power. If the prophet had not said the title of the first God King more than once, the gods might not have dared to believe it, and the great and powerful father might also fail. Thousands of years of fear have long been deep in his bones. "Let me do it." The silence continued, and Kronos spoke in the increasingly desperate waiting of the Earth Mother. Unlike before, his voice was calm and magnetic at this moment, without any shrinking in front of the God King before. Before today, he had always been the most timid and the one with the least sense of existence among the 12 Titans. Because of his unique authority, he was never treated as a toy by his father. Because he was the youngest child, Uranus was not very afraid of him. Although he had the most powerful divine power among the Titans, he had never been noticed by his brothers and sisters. But at this time, as he spoke, the gods finally remembered his premeditated oath. As the first person to swear, he claimed that he was not an assistant, but did not say that he was not a knife holder. Just as he had thought about it long ago, Kronos only wielded the knife for himself and would never become a knife in the hands of others. Yes, my youngest brother. Hyperion sneered, as if he had just met him for the first time. I never thought that you were so far-sighted. Yes, Kronos. Perhaps in terms of wisdom, you are no less than the prophet. Oknos also spoke. He still remembered how embarrassed he was when he said the first half of the prophecy. But Kronos was different. Facing his father's oppression, he even dared to play this kind of language trick. If Uranus hadn't noticed, he should have spent his 2500th birthday in Tartarus. Enough. Mother Earth interrupted coldly, her voice mixed with disappointment and a hint of surprise. Since you are all unwilling to hold the knife for me, then don't laugh at your brave brother. Cronus, my youngest child. After scolding her other two sons, Gaia's voice finally took on a hint of anger. So are you willing to pick up the sickle and end this disaster for me, your brothers and sisters, and yourself? Yes, I am willing. Kronos said. I am willing to hold the knife, but I need more specific guidance. There are definitely more critical parts in the prophecy. A knife can't make me compete with the Father God. You are right, I will. I will find the prophet and ask you about the true meaning of the prophecy. But he once said that he was just an observer of fate. Hyperion suddenly said. That's just that he has other demands, and I see this more and more clearly now. The repeatedly devastated Mother Earth seemed to have finally regained some wisdom. When facing the only chance to resist, she calmly recalled every meeting with Ryan. No one who can spy on fate can bear it, and they will definitely use this power to benefit themselves. The god of prophecy definitely knows more, but he didn't say it. Just like he asked the king of gods for the timing, he must have his own purpose. He is in Hades now, between me and Tartarus, he is waiting for me. He will make demands on me, I am ready, but you should also be ready. Mother Earth spoke calmly, and then lay quietly on the ground. It's not the right time yet, she has to wait for the right time. When Uranus finds a new toy, that's when she will go to Hades. Now, she chooses to endure the pain. Chapter 14 Artifact Calendar and 3 Conditions. In the underworld, without the sky, everything seems silent. When the earth was torn apart, Ryan had passed through the earth and came to this empty land. This is one of the 3 parts of chaos. The sky and the earth are one, the ocean and the river coexist, and only the underworld shrouded in darkness exists alone. Under the influence of divine power, when Ryan passed through the stratum and looked around, what came into his eyes was an endless gray plain. The underworld at this time is very different from the myths of the previous life. There is no river of fire, no 3-headed dog, no Styx and Acheron, and no palace of Hades. This gray land, which was called the Pastoral of Truth by later generations, is empty and more desolate than the ground 1,000 years ago. At that time, the ground at least had mountains and seas, but at this moment in the underworld, there is nothing. This should be the destination of the soul. But it won't be in the future. Shaking his head, Ryan silently made an assertion. He used his divine power to pick up a small hill and made himself a set of tables and chairs made of mud. This was Chaos's new invention, so he gained a bit of skill and creative divinity. It's better than nothing. Ryan casually let this divinity, which was not even power, merge with spirituality. He did not continue to create new things, but quietly waited for his guests. After all, without users and admirers, skills cannot become a priesthood. When new gods are born and humans appear in the future, he will have a better way to obtain them. Time passed day by day. Although there is no sun and moon in the underworld, Ryan can still judge how long it has been through the perception of time and moon. About 24 years after the 12 Titans returned to the mother body, with a dark green light flashing, the empty underworld finally ushered in the second guest. When he saw Gaia again, Ryan obviously found her old age. Now the mother of the earth looks like an old woman in her 50s. Her emerald green eyes were dull. Her hair, which was originally decorated with flowers, was dry and yellow, and even her skirt was covered with dust. Long time no see, Earth Mother. Without getting up, Ryan pointed to the stone chair opposite with his right hand, indicating that the other party could sit down. He was not polite. Strictly speaking, he had never liked these ancient gods. Gaia looked up at Ryan. The 4th meeting, she clearly felt the change in his attitude. Unlike the respect and courtesy in the past, Ryan was now indifferent and distant to her. Gaia was not surprised by this. With the wisdom of a prophet, she must have noticed her and her children's dissatisfaction with him. Before, she was the queen of gods, the Earth Mother, and the ancient god with supreme power, so the other party greeted her with a smile. But now, although he didn't know what the other party relied on, it was obvious that Ryan was no longer afraid of her. Long time no see, wise His Highness Ryan. After looking at Ryan for a while, Gaia finally sat on the chair. No matter what the god in front of her thought, she didn't want to endure it any longer. First, 6 offspring were imprisoned in the abyss, and then 12 children were forcibly stuffed back into the mother's body. After doing such a brutal act, Uranus did not hesitate to vent his desires for more than 20 years. Gaia could feel her origin passing away every moment. Although as a god, she is immortal, if she continues like this, sooner or later, she will fall into eternal sleep. I came to seek help. Gaia said tiredly, I gave birth to the prophesied knife, and you once claimed that it could shake the throne of the god king. I asked my children, although most of them swore an oath and dared not oppose their father, Kronos bravely took over the responsibility of holding the knife. I am the assistant in your prophecy, but now, the biggest problem is in front of me. Prophet, wise Lord Ryan, please tell me how to truly shake the kingship of Uranus and even make him no longer a threat forever. Faced with the Earth Mother's inquiry, Ryan smiled slightly and did not respond. What do you want? The Earth Mother spoke again. Facing Ryan's silence, she asked directly. I can do my best to fulfill your request, as long as you tell me how to end this nightmare. Your Highness Gaia, you alone may not be able to give me what I want. Not moved by Gaia's words, Ryan said calmly. What he wants is not what Gaia can give alone, and even in comparison, Gaia's part seems unimportant. I need the destined knife bearer, and now it seems to be the Honorable His Highness Kronos. If he can end the rule of the father, he will be the unquestionable new king. I want you, Earth Mother, to help me do 2 things, but I need him to agree to 3 conditions. Then, you will know what you want. This is Ryan's price tag, 2 things from the original god, 3 conditions from the future god king. This price tag is really not low. Although Gaia is still very weak, she still ripples with power. Faintly, although she has not been able to come out again, the power of time and space is also gathering in it. You made a prophecy, but you met me many times. Gaia said coldly, if the God King knew about this, he would not let you go. Maybe, but you don't have to worry about it. As early as when we first met, I foresaw this day. I originally prepared 3 things for you, but since you followed the agreement before, the oracle offset 1. In addition, 2 requirements, 3 conditions, none of them can be missing. Faced with Ryan's toughness, Gaia was a little angry, but also a little helpless. Although she didn't believe that the other party could see today thousands of years ago, she had to admit that since the prophet dared to sit here, he must have been fully prepared. At least in terms of foresight, Gaia admitted that she was far inferior to the other party. Tell me your conditions. Although I can't agree to you on behalf of my child, I am willing to listen to your requirements for my part. After thinking for a while, Gaia said in a deep voice. Things have come to this point, and she can no longer hesitate. With a slight smile, Ryan was not surprised by Gaia's surrender. Obviously, compared to a little external property, she hated the tyrannical king more. An artifact. So he said, Life Aquarius, I want to borrow it for 1,000 years. This is my first request. Life Aquarius is Gaia's companion artifact. Only in her hands can it be powerful. Without Gaia, the Life Aquarius will gradually become silent until it becomes immortal, so Ryan only plans to borrow it temporarily. Of course, Ryan couldn't guarantee whether it would be complete when it was returned. I agreed. What about the second one? Facing Ryan's request, Gaia nodded and continued to ask. The second condition is simpler. Ryan said, I ask you to arrange the growth of plants and climate changes under the waxing and waning of the illusory moon according to the calendar I set. It cannot be changed until you challenge the God King. This is Ryan clarifying the control of time and moon over plants and climate and further improving their powers. Theoretically, the Earth Mother can abolish it at any time after the new king ascends the throne, but Ryan doesn't care. He only needs this time as long as Chaos's plant growth and climate change are temporarily under time and moon. When he swallows this origin, everything will be a foregone conclusion. Chapter 15, The Beginning of the Magic Network. Artifacts and Calendars. Faced with Ryan's request, Earth Mother did not respond immediately, but she had already agreed in her heart. Unlike the Oracle, it is an artifact that gave birth to the world, and it can be donated and handed over. But as a companion of Mother Earth, the vase of life cannot really be taken away from her. As for letting the changes of moon guide plants and climate, Mother Earth is also acceptable. After all, the Earth is her fundamental vocation, and the god of weather must be willing to contribute to this. Cronus. Gaia called in her heart, asking her brave child for his opinion. I can agree to his request, but what about your 3 promises? At this time, Mother Earth's belly was not stable. When Ryan said the unquestionable new king, the lord of the ocean and the sun god could no longer bear it. If they had known the result earlier, they would have stepped forward. But now, they know it's a done deal. Cronus's power is not weaker than theirs. He is the most suitable sword wielder without being bound by an oath, and the Earth Mother will not choose anyone else. I promise. Cronus said to Mother Earth, and his voice was heard outside the body at the same time. He has gained an absolute advantage, but he has also attracted dissatisfaction from his brothers. Now he just wants to get a more accurate prophecy and sit on the throne, instead of bickering with his brother in his mother's womb. I am willing to agree to 3 conditions, Your Highness Ryan. As long as it does not affect my royal power, I will try my best to do it. Nodding, Ryan was not surprised by Cronus' answer. For him, if he can become the God King, he can accept any price. If you can only be trapped in the belly of the Mother Goddess, no matter how small the price is, it is just an empty promise. Very good. He smiled and said his first request. First, I want the origin of time and space. The scene fell silent for a moment. Apparently neither the Earth Mother nor the Titans expected that Ryan would make this request. Not too harsh, just weird. After a while, Cronus's voice came. He wasn't angry, but he was a little confused. The origin of God can indeed be transferred, Your Highness, but the recipient can never truly own it. If you don't plan to be my god, then no matter how much I give you, it will only grow with time. Come back to me as time goes by. Cronus did not lie. The authority of the nature gods cannot be transferred unless the world takes it away. Otherwise, the divine authority of the 12 Titans would have been taken away by the God King. Being of God is the only way to give a gift in the long run, but no one would think of a prophet as someone else's servant. This is my thing. It's like the bottle of life. At least I need it now. Ryan did not respond directly, but reiterated his request. Okay, I promise you. As the god of time and space, the departure of the origin will not seriously affect my power. I will give you as much as possible. Cronus promised. Nodding. With satisfaction, Ryan began to state his second condition. Well, the next request involves the future of the land beneath our feet. In an accidental prophecy, I saw that one day in the future, a new moon will rise in the sky. It is a solid celestial body like the sun. It is more suitable to hang there than the moon I created. So I want to find a new home for my creation. So you chose the underworld? Yes. Ryan nodded and admitted. Cronus, the future God King, I want you to make the following promise. The celestial bodies on the earth have entities, and the celestial bodies underground have no entities, so the sun and moon with entities are on the earth, and the sun and moon without entities are in Hades. The sun is a symbol of masculinity, so the sun in the sky is stronger than the sun in the underworld. The moon is a symbol of the feminine, so the moon in the underworld is stronger than the moon in the sky. The physical sun was born first, so all the concepts of sun originate from it. The incorporeal moon was born first, so all the concepts of moon originated from it. The sky and the earth are in harmony, which is also your achievement as the king of gods. I promise. Cronus did not hesitate. After all, the sun and moon had nothing to do with him. He could also use this to alleviate his brother's jealousy towards him. Please tell me your third request. You are always so wise. Cronus was indeed hard to blame for Ryan's thoughts. Just like the time sequence in the past, although no one accepted the priesthood of year, month, and quarter, all the gods recognized this respect for them. Now the seer makes demands for his creation, but Hyperion benefits as well. Mother Earth, and all of you who are listening at this time. Ryan's smile became more genuine, and he was grateful for this still ignorant era. I don't know if you have noticed that as early as between heaven and earth, among all things in the world, there are all kinds of special particles. They exist and do not exist. They can affect the material of reality and shape darkness and light. They are scattered in the sky and the earth, even around us. Yes, I can feel it. Mother Earth said, earth, water, wind, fire, light, darkness, wind and thunder, they are special particles with different powers. But in the face of divine power, they are as fragile as pieces of paper. Apart from following the rhythm when the gods exercise their authority, I don't know what value they have. Smiling slightly, Ryan refused to comment on Gaia's disparagement. What she said is not unreasonable. In the face of divine power, the power of elements is indeed insignificant. But he was never meant to use them against divine power. It will happen, Ryan said, at least controlling them will allow me, who does not have the priesthood of water, to shake the waves, and to create wind and rain without the priesthood of weather. Gaia smiled politely, and the gods in her belly laughed more directly. With Gaia's isolation, they were not afraid of being noticed by Ryan. They had been led by Ryan today, and they were angry in their hearts. But at this moment, the other party's request finally made them regain some confidence. Yes, the god of prophecy may be able to see fate, but his own power is a flaw. Weak power. Oceanus commented, from time and moon to his idea today, he has been using other methods to gain power. Yes, he also tried to influence the weather. Kriya sneered. He was very dissatisfied with Ryan's attempt to use the calendar to control the climate, but the priesthood is the foundation, those ridiculous gadgets are meaningless. You can't say that, this is at least an attempt, isn't it? Everyone knows that the destructive power of prophecy is a joke. Because of Ryan's plan for the sun and the moon, Hyperion now has less resentment towards him, but only a little bit. After all, Ryan's prophecy only brought him suffering, and he missed the throne of the king of gods. So what are you going to do? Unlike his brother, Kronos is not as willful as his brother at this most critical moment. His voice was gentle and sincere, as if he was thinking for Ryan from the bottom of his heart. If you are interested in them, after I ascend the throne, I will give you the power to control them in the name of the God King. As long as I am the God King, you can control them as if they were your own arms. Leon smiled gently in his heart, and he understood the implication of Kronos. He remained calm and shook his head gently to refuse. Thank you for your kindness, your highness, but I have other ideas. I plan to weave a net to restrain these disordered particles. When I need it, I will let the strings of the net crisscross and ring according to the preset structure. In this way, I can control them. As he said, Ryan also invited the gods. At that time, if anyone present wants to use this net, I will definitely welcome it. Chapter 16, The Great Prophecy. Thank you for your generosity. Faced with Ryan's invitation, Kronos seemed to happily accept it, not affected by his brothers and sisters beside him. At this time, in the belly of the Earth Mother, Creus was expressing his contempt for the net. Beside him, other titans agreed with his opinion, and they also did not think they needed the help of these elements. Even Kronos thought so. As a powerful god, he could do everything he wanted with his divine power. But since he was asking for help, he still expressed his concern. What do you plan to use to weave this net? If you need it, I can tan the space into strings and give it to you as a gift. No need, I have a better choice. Ryan shook his head gently, then smiled and looked at the Earth Mother. After the request was made, the other party should take action. We will do as you wish, your highness. The Earth Mother responded to Ryan's gaze, but don't let us down for a while. After the voice fell, Gaia stretched out her hand. Silently, a strange-looking bottle appeared. Its shape resembles the female organ that breeds offspring. The mysterious divine pattern on the bottle flickers, and a golden-green unknown gem is inlaid in the middle. Ryan feels the endless breath of life from it. This is the life Aquarius, a symbol of life, breeding, and reproduction. Gaia herself has never had these powers. This is the treasure bestowed by the world to the Earth Mother. She has also used it to irrigate vegetation and feed new gods. In the next 1,000 years, it will be yours. Although it contains the origin of chaos life, I want to remind you that your absorption of its origin is meaningless. Just as the origin of God will eventually return to his master's hands, the life you took from the bottle will also return to the world. Some reluctance, but the Earth Mother still handed the bottle to Ryan. Thank you for your reminder. I'll remember it. Ryan reached out to take the vase and looked at the legendary artifact, but the origin of life seems to be absorbed by mortals, at least you did it when you created plants. Because mortals will eventually decay, and the birth of new life will also strengthen the power of the artifact. Gaia said calmly. Nodding, Ryan looked at Gaia's abdomen where Kronos and his 11 brothers and sisters were. Under his gaze, the surrounding time and space began to fluctuate, and a ball of gold and silver intertwined source power slowly emerged. This is most of Kronos' time and space origin. Given the uniqueness of time and space power, even if the origin leaves the body, he still retains most of his power. It can only last for 500 years. Kronos' somewhat tired voice came, "This is the limit of what I can do. After that, it will return to me uncontrollably." Enough. Ryan put away the ball of origin. Time and space are the foundation of the world. If the Aquarius of life represents the source of life in the vast majority of the world, then Kronos accounts for at most 30% of time and space. Ryan has even less, probably more than 20% of Chaos's time and space source power, but this is far beyond his expectations. "Swear to the world if you can tell me the true meaning of the prophecy, including how to really overthrow my father when I become the new God King. I will immediately fulfill the previous agreement with you." Kronos' voice came again, his tone was a little urgent, and the Earth Mother followed suit and made a vow. "The previous payment has been paid, and they can't wait to hear the answer." Laughing in his heart, Ryan knew that in fact, under the influence of fate and the promotion of the world, without him, Gaia and Kronos would also think of the key to the problem. But the reality is like this: sometimes you only need to know something a minute earlier, it can bring you huge rewards. Not urgent, Ryan slowly told the reason why Uranus became the God King. Among the 3 generations of God Kings, he is the one who truly gained the kingdom by righteousness, because this is the reward given to him by the world. The Father's divine power comes from the world, and he is the first being to conceive gods through intercourse. When he started this step, he gained the symbol of masculinity, and when the Titans were born, he became the origin of patriarchy. Because of his achievements, the world crowned him with the throne and allowed him to rule the sky, the sea and the earth. So, how can we make him lose the favor of the world? Kronos asked hurriedly, not caring about Ryan mentioning the shameful name of Titan. He is a male god, so he represents masculinity. He is a father, so he holds paternal authority. Except for me, the original god and his brothers, all the creatures in the world today are his descendants, and this cannot be changed. So, Ryan put away his smile, looked solemnly at the Earth Mother, and also looked at the King of Time and Space in his belly. "You must use the sickle to cut off his symbol as a male god and a father. When he loses this symbol, he is no longer a male god, and the masculine power will leave him. When he loses this symbol, he will no longer be able to reproduce, and the power of patriarchy will fall apart. Without these, he is still the master of the sky, but no longer a god king who has made contributions to the world." Gaia was stunned, and Kronos and his brothers and sisters seemed to have lost their ability to speak. Until the moment before, they were still thinking hard about the purpose of the sickle. There is no doubt that it is a divine weapon, but it is not enough to threaten the supreme God King. But with Ryan's explanation, they finally understood its purpose. The sickle was bred in the earth, so it naturally wouldn't hurt Gaia, and it could exist in her body and flesh. As long as Kronos swung the knife at the right time, everything would be over. "Is this fate?" Gaia sneered, not knowing whether she was mocking the God King or herself. "He personally sent the knife holder to the most suitable position, and he personally planted the root of disaster for himself. My sister who controls destiny. I don't know if she has seen this scene a long time ago." Ryan did not comment on this. He knew that Ms. Knight was different from Gaia. She and the Dark Lord only personified a small part. Even in the myths of later generations, they often have no sense of existence. "Choose a suitable time." Ryan said, "Not now, not recently, but when the God King is completely relaxed and thinks that the prophecy has been stopped." "I will," Gaia said. After getting the answer, she no longer wanted to stay here. For her, Uranus was hateful, but Ryan also made her not want to get close. In front of this prophet, she always felt like a puppet being manipulated. "Wait a minute, mother." As if sensing Gaia's intention to leave, Kronos suddenly spoke. His voice was upright and powerful. Since he was locked in his mother's belly, he no longer concealed his edge. Especially as Ryan said the key to overthrowing the father, his inner confidence grew. But before that, he wanted to give himself an insurance. "Before leaving," he said, "before we complete this great cause of overthrowing the God King. Respected prophet, creator of time, lord of the moon, god of prophecy, as the future God King in your prophecy, I will ask you as the God King. In your eyes, holding this sickle destined to be engraved in history, can I achieve the unanimous wish of me, my mother, and my brothers and sisters, overthrow the cruel old master, and let me ascend the throne? In the future, can I create greater achievements than my father and rule the sky, the earth, and the ocean forever?" After a moment of silence, Ryan didn't know what to say. This is the successive God Kings of chaos. Even though they have witnessed the horror of prophecy, they are still so obsessed with fate. But Kronos has already spoken, and Ryan simply meets his demands. Since they like prophecy so much, he will make the last big prophecy before integrating the prophecy priesthood. After making a decision, Ryan nodded to the Earth Mother, and then his eyes glowed. Gaia and the Titans were quiet, and no one wanted to disturb the prophet's observation of fate. With different thoughts, they quietly waited for the final result. After a long time, the light in Ryan's eyes just dissipated, and Kronos couldn't wait to ask, "What did you see?" "Will I succeed?" "You will succeed," Ryan said calmly after coming to his senses. "You will succeed in defeating your father. Although the process still requires a battle, victory will eventually belong to you. But I hope you remember minus." He looked directly at the Earth Mother, and it seemed that he was looking directly at the future God King in her belly. "Nothing is permanent, Kronos. You will succeed, but you won't succeed forever. One day in the future, when life and death are reversed, you will understand what I mean. You will lose what you gain. You will rise by this. Minus you will die by this." Chapter 17, Prelude. It has been nearly 300 years since the last meeting with the Earth Mother. Ryan's power has increased again. Although he has been in the underworld for these years, with the promotion of the calendar and the operation of the moon, he has reached the 9th level of divine power, close to the peak of weak divine power. Among his many priesthoods, the change of time sequence is the most drastic. Now it is a powerful priesthood that is enough to support him to reach the 12th level of divine power. Epidus among the 12 titans is even weaker than him. After all, the simple speech is too insignificant. But Ryan doesn't care, because he knows that he will soon have a real foothold in the world of chaos. According to the prophecy priesthood's induction, maybe it will be today. Mount Odolius. It has been 300 years since the God King imprisoned his descendants. At first, Uranus, who committed atrocities, was still a little worried. He was not sure whether his plan was really effective. He checked the Titan's conditions from time to time, and even cut open Gaia's abdomen again. But the final result made him feel relieved. The prophecy was indeed stopped by him. His children stayed there honestly, and there was no sign of major disorder in the laws corresponding to their priesthood. Except that the Earth Mother was weakening day by day, no accidents happened. Uranus finally put his mind at ease, and he proved with facts that fate can be stopped by power. From then on, he no longer worried about it. He once looked for Ryan's traces. After all, he had defeated the prophecy, so there was nothing to be afraid of the god of prophecy. He planned to vent his past worries about this, and he wanted to let the prophet know that in the face of true power, nothing is absolute. But what disappointed Uranus was that he searched the earth and the sea, and he used the power of the sky to search the world, but still found no trace of Ryan. Maybe he took shelter in the land of eternal night, or somewhere else. At least in terms of escaping, the prophet is still very capable. In the end, the God King gave up the search after finding nothing. He didn't want to provoke other primitive gods, but he had nothing to do, so he had to stay by his queen's side all day, releasing his desires day and night. This day, as usual, the sky sank slightly and connected with the top of Mount Odysseus. It was not the first time that the sky and the earth were in harmony because of the actions of their personifications. But now there was not even a bystander in the empty chaos. "It's time," Themis said. Unlike her brothers and sisters, the god of justice and law has always been silent in the past. She was not close to her own people, and her power was not strong, because no one in chaos cared about justice or law at this time. The king of gods wielded his power wantonly, and the weak Themis could only sit and watch in silence. For this reason, she covered her eyes. Unlike the explanation in later myths, she simply didn't want to see all this disorder at this moment. But now, the king of gods is about to be overthrown, and she is the first to cheer for her brother. "Yes, it's time." Rhea also spoke. Perhaps because of the similarity in their duties, the goddess of time has always been close to her youngest brother. As a goddess, she is not born to be the eldest son, so she not only does not envy her brother, but is proud of his bravery. "You are right. It's time." Kronos raised his head. Reaching out, he pulled out the prophesied sickle from his mother's flesh and blood. It was not beautiful and even looked a little rough. The sharp blade made of flint shone with luster, and the vines of plants entangled the handle. Kronos held it, and he felt boundless pain and despair. That was the pain Gaia suffered when she was pregnant with this sickle, and only the titans who suffered with her could hold it. The sky and the earth were intersecting, and in Gaia's belly, Kronos could see this scene clearly. His hand holding the handle of the knife was shaking a little, which was both fear and excitement. Even now, the fear that Uranus brought him for thousands of years still exists. He was afraid of his father, just like anyone would be afraid of pain. But he still mustered up his courage, because the throne of the God King was ahead. "I will succeed," he thought. He held the hilt of the knife and swung it down with force. An era ended. The underworld. Not standing on the ground, but hanging in the sky. Under the influence of divine power, Ryan looked down at the land. It's about to start. Looking up at the top of the underworld, Ryan seemed to see the scene destined to be recorded in history through the stratum. He did not go up to watch, not only because it was a war between the Father and the Titans, but also because he had more important things to do. "I'm going to start too." Ryan was a little excited, and only he knew that he was going to do something that chaos would never allow. But at this special moment, no one could stop him. Ryan stared at the front quietly. I don't know when the moon that was originally hanging on the ground disappeared. Its creator, the source of its existence, took it down, passed through the earth and came to a strange place. Now, the silver-white light body hangs above the underworld. The soft and bright light illuminates the underworld that has not seen the sun for thousands of years. The power of the underworld moon in the underworld begins to gather towards the moon. This is not only because there should be a dark moon here, but also because of the oath of the future God King. However, Ryan knows very well that chaos will definitely take back this authority after the birth of the real Hades moon. This is a common routine used by world consciousness. It has no subjective consciousness, it only has instinct. So it never cares who a thing belongs to, it just acts according to its own rules. But from now on, nothing like this will happen again. With a slight smile, Ryan stretched out his hand to straighten his silver-white robe. On this important day, he still wanted to have a sense of ceremony. He held the oracle tablet in his hand and the vase of life around his waist. With the origin of time and space surrounding him, Ryan walked towards Moon. As if he didn't touch anything, the Lord of the Moon came to the inside of Moon. Unlike the light outside, it was dark here at this time. The chaotic time sequence that was once bound by the order of the God King is now wandering here. The past and future are uncertain, and the length of time has no scale. This place is more like the beginning of creation, where everything was so chaotic. Looking at this scene, Ryan reached out and lifted up the origin of time and space intertwined with silver and gold. He broke it up and blended it into the space. The original origin was scattered, and it began to combine with the chaotic time sequence of this place. But it has lost its original solid state and is dissipating at 1,000 times faster. If nothing else happens, within 3 months at most, maybe 2 months, Cronus will instinctively take back this origin, and Ryan will not be able to accuse him of breaking his oath. But now, these origins are not available even for a day. The spiritual origin that had been hidden for an era poured out of Ryan for the first time. It wrapped around Moon and its creation. Using this as a medium, timing, prophecy, the dark moon, and even the power absorbed when the moon is running, such as light, celestial bodies, changes, and even the death and desolation that just gathered after arriving in the underworld, all concepts are at this time and spirituality confluence. They merged together, torn apart by the madness of spirituality, and mixed into indescribable chaos. It was also like absolute darkness, and everything was empty. Only Ryan stands here. He is the only existence here. I have finally waited for this day. Ryan felt a little emotional. He could feel that the will of the world had locked onto him. Undoubtedly, he angered the world by allowing spirituality to devour other sources. Chaos doesn't care whether these origins belong to him. It only cares that these things originally controlled by it are out of its control. So it sent out a mysterious call, and all the gods in the world received this special message, which was similar to the sound of laws at the birth of gods. All the gods knew that in the underworld under the earth, there was a god in charge of spirituality who violated the will of the world. He who stops him will be rewarded, and whoever helps him will be punished by the world. But just as Ryan had calculated, time passed minute by minute and nothing happened. In the middle of Moon, in the dark and chaotic void, Ryan's divine body collapsed on its own, turning into matter and integrating with the environment. In the Moon at this moment, the earth is empty and chaotic, there is darkness on the abyss, Ryan's spirit is running on the water. In this void, a voice broke through the silence. This is the original one from which all things arise. Let there be light, he said. So the next moment, there was light in the dark void. When he saw that the light was good, he separated the light from the darkness. He called the light day and the darkness night. There was evening and there was morning. This was the first day. Chapter 18, The God King Loses His Throne. Time goes back to not long ago. The sky and the earth are still fitting together, and the world is as peaceful as before. But on this day, an accident still happened. Without the slightest sign, at a certain moment under the sky and on the earth, the roar full of pain spread throughout the world. The supreme divine power shook the void, and all things could feel the pain and anger of the God King. At the same time, on the top of Mount Odysseus, the earth cracked open and the 12 titans walked out one after another. The leader held a bloody sickle, his expression was tough and resolute. He was tall and heroic, and time and space surrounded him. 11 brothers and sisters stood behind him, and they resisted the oppression of the God King in front of them together. When Kronos swung his sickle, the oath was over. They were not knife holders, nor were they helpers, they were just spectators who knew but did not report. But now, without the constraints of the oath, they stood decisively opposite the God King. Of course, at this moment Uranus was no longer the God King. When the symbol of the male god was cut off, and when the parents and children stood opposite, the symbol of Uranus's patriarchy collapsed. Every moment, the power of the God King was slipping away from him. When he came to his senses from the pain, his strength had fallen by nearly half. "Give it back to me," the Father of Heaven roared, and his big hand reached for the flesh and blood that fell on the ground. With the god's recovery ability, as long as he could take back a part of himself, he could be restored to his original state the next moment. Close. Uranus was happy, but the next moment a silver light flashed, and the distance between them was instantly pulled apart. The Titans had been sitting back to resist the God King's burst of divine power. But at this moment, as Uranus's spirit regained consciousness, his strength was no longer what it used to be. After all, he was no longer the God King. Boom! The Lord of the Sky was furious, his flesh was cut, the Queen of God betrayed him and his offspring rebelled, which made him lose his mind a little. He released his divine power madly and rushed towards his body. The Titans were a little difficult to stop for a while, but Oceanus came up with a good idea. He rushed forward, grabbed the remains of his father, and threw them towards the sea. The sky instinctively blocked this action, but the remains still fell to the sea. Uranus looked with expectation, hoping to get help from his brother. But the result disappointed him again. Pontus betrayed him without hesitation. Although he was taciturn, he still hated this tyrannical brother. So he used his divine power to hide the remains in the waves and under the sea. As a result, the father lost the sense of the body, and only blood foam floated on the sea. "Ah, how dare you!" Uranus roared. He didn't expect that even his brother dared to betray him. In his eyes, these relatives outside the original gods have always been cowardly. They let him do whatever he wants and never know how to resist. "My father, this is the result of your cruelty." In the sky, Kronos pointed his bloody sickle at his father. Until this moment, he still tried to use words rather than force to make the other party give in. After all, he knew very well that even without the throne of the God King, Uranus was still the closest ruler of the sky to great divine power. "Give up, your madness has made the gods resist you. Give up the throne of the God King, you are still the master of the sky." Boom! There was no response, and what greeted Kronos was the violent divine power of the Father. He unfolded his divine body, and the sky was pressed down. As the incarnation of the sky, he also had the potential for great divine power. When he burst out with all his strength, the weather was tampered with, and the celestial bodies were destroyed. Pieces of fragments broke out of the sun and fell to the ground, and everything began to burn, the light was obscured, the ocean currents were cut off, and the blood of the Titan gods fell like rain. Only Kronos and Rhea escaped, and they relied on the authority of time and space to dodge frantically and avoid their father's last madness. Although he didn't know why, Kronos could feel that his father's power was still weakening. Some changes seemed to be happening to him. He was using his divine power to suppress it, but the change was becoming more and more intense, so his divine power was also declining. As long as he persisted, Kronos believed that he would be the final winner. The war among the gods was breaking out, and strange fluctuations were also born in the land of eternal night. The chain of laws was dancing in the sky, which was a sign of the birth of gods. Perhaps it was because of the negative emotions that broke out before the King of Gods lost his position, or perhaps it was because of the disorder between the sky, the sun, and the celestial bodies. The child of Nyx and Erebus was born. 8 breaths came to the world one after another. 2 of them shared a little light-related origin from the Titans, and the rest came with negative emotions. Ether, the god of skylight. Hemera, the goddess of daylight. Malos, the god of doom. Kir, the god of destruction. Eurynomus, the god of decay. As, the goddess of sorrow. Apate, the goddess of deception. Phalots, the goddess of lust. Unlike the birth of the 12 titans, the 8 children of Nyx did not have a huge impact on the world, so their birth did not bring any additional help. If nothing unexpected happened, it would take at least years for these gods to be born one by one. However, at this moment, something unexpected happened to all the gods. The loss shock caused by the birth of the gods and the war of gods is still continuing, but a warning from the world suddenly came. In the underworld, in the moon, there is a being who controls the spirituality and is devouring the source power of the world. Anyone who stops him can get the reward of the world. This is the instinctive reaction of the world. But unfortunately, no one has time to solve this matter now. It's him. He took my priesthood. Mnemosyne fell to the ground at this moment, and the blood of the gods stained her clothes, but she still screamed. As early as when she was born, she sensed that the priesthood of memory was born with her, but she was not controlled by her for unknown reasons. Damn it. The power of the Sky Master flashed again, and Kronos' face couldn't help but become ferocious. He had already felt at this moment that Ryan not only concealed the spiritual priesthood, but also for some reason, his power was actually accompanied by a weak time and space divinity. With the help of this divinity, the origin that originally belonged to him was being devoured crazily. This was the origin he took the initiative to hand over, so there was no resistance at all. He felt the loss of power in his body, but Kronos could only grit his teeth and persist. With the help of the power of time and the goddess of time, he temporarily maintained his level of divine power. Without hesitation, he still chose to deal with Uranus. It was too late to go to the underworld now. Kronos could only hope to defeat his father and use the power of the King of Gods to maintain his power. Now, he had no way out. In the land of eternal night, the birth of the Son of God began to accelerate. The children who originally took several years to come to the world were compressed into a few days, but it still couldn't quench the thirst. The chain of laws echoed with the demands of the world, but no one responded for a long time. This was Ryan's only and best chance. The Father of Heaven and the Mother of Earth were fighting with the 12 titans. The 2 gods of the dark night were giving birth to children, and Tartarus had no will as always. Now no one could stop what he did. The next moment, as if in response to the world's targeting, the fluctuation of fate came from the underworld. All the gods could feel that chaos's fate was torn apart. Chapter 19, God creates the world in 7 days. Time goes back to not long ago. Unlike the chaos in the outside world at this time, Ryan's creation is still continuing in the moon. At the core of the moon, chaotic time is released. Just like the beginning of creation, time has no scale at this moment. This is a characteristic that Ryan deliberately retained. In his view, both ordered and chaotic time and space have their value as long as it is controllable, it has meaning to exist. So in the newly born world, the deeper it is, the more chaotic the time sequence is. The more shallow it is, the more order prevails. But at the core, it is as orderly as the outside world, and that is Ryan's future residence. At this moment, in the new interface, Ryan has no body, and his spirit floats at the root of the world. The matter decomposed by the divine body combines with the source power in the life bottle, and a substance that is both virtual and real is born. He used this substance to form the earth and water, which is the most basic substance in the world, but Ryan needs something else to separate them. Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, to separate the waters from the waters, he said. So the spiritual world had a firmament, separating the waters under the firmament from the waters above the firmament. He called the firmament heaven. There was evening and there was morning, this was the 2nd day. There was light and darkness, there was a firmament, and the world also needed a bearing entity. Then Ryan's spirit moved to the center of the waters, which was also the center of the world. Let the waters under the sky be gathered together in one place, and let the dry land appear, he said. So the waters gathered together in one place, and he called the dry land earth, and the gathering place of the waters seas. Let the earth bring forth green grass, seed-bearing plants, and fruit-bearing trees, each according to its kind, with fruit in its seed on the ground. So the earth brought forth green grass and seed-bearing plants, each according to its kind, and fruit-bearing trees, each according to its kind, with fruit in its seed on the ground. There was evening and there was morning, this was the 3rd day. The earth appeared, the ocean was separated, and with the help of the life bottle, Ryan started from the simplest plants and created creatures evolved by spirituality. He could feel that the battle outside was getting more and more intense, and the birth of the two gods of the dark night was also accelerating. But he didn't care about it. After all, in this chaotic interface of time sequence, he could easily stretch a day to 7 days. Ryan's spirit looked up at the empty sky, and he condensed the concepts of the moon and celestial bodies. The spiritual world does not need the sun, but there is more than one moon. He said, in the sky, there must be lights to divide the day and night. These lights will serve as signs to determine the seasons, days and years. They will shine in the sky and illuminate the earth. So he created a big light, divided into 7, and created stars, corresponding to the seasons, days and years. He placed these lights in the sky to illuminate the earth, to control the day and night, and to divide the light and darkness. There was evening and morning. This was the 4th day. The celestial bodies appeared, and Ryan's accumulation was almost exhausted. But in addition to what he gained in this life, he also had what he had left in his previous life. There were no stars in the outside world yet, but the origin of the stars was already being nurtured. When he created the stars, the origin of the world corresponding to them began to be absorbed by him. This absorption will not stop until the real star god is born. Extracting flowers, birds, fish and insects from his memory, Ryan poured the liquid in the life bottle again. He was still unable to create things alone in reality, but in the spiritual realm, he was the only supreme. Water must breed creatures. There must be winged creatures flying on the ground and in the sky, he said. So he created big fish and various living creatures that could move in the water, each according to their kind, and he created various winged creatures, each according to their kind. He blessed them so that they could reproduce with each other. So they gained the ability to reproduce and could gradually increase. There was evening and morning. This was the 5th day. The original life appeared, and then, it was the hardest part. Ryan wanted to create humans, but this was beyond his ability, because in his memory, there were no pure, spiritual humans. So he gave up his original idea and mixed his own bones and blood with the source of life. He separated the good, the bad, the excellent, and the ordinary. He would use them to create life separately. He said, "Let the earth bring forth living creatures, each according to its kind, livestock, insects, and beasts of the earth, each according to its kind." So he created the beasts of the earth, each according to its kind, livestock, each according to its kind, all kinds of insects on the earth, each according to its kind. He said, "I will make them in my image, in my likeness. Let them rule over all life in the sea, in the air, on the earth, and on the interface." So he created the divine life in his own image, that is, he created them in his image. Spirituality is opposite to matter, so the feminine-dominated divine appears in the form of women. He blessed them and promised them eternal life. He ordered them to manage the order of this world on his behalf. There was evening and there was morning. This was the 6th day. The devouring of many origins by the Spirit is coming to an end. Time, space and spirit are the foundation of the existence of this world, and order and chaos are divided inside and outside the world. Ryan stood at the root of the world, and he created a new body for himself. He had already taken away most of the power of the life Aquarius, and the remaining was the source power corresponding to matter. From then on, the liquid in the Aquarius could only act on matter, not on the spirit. All spiritual life in the world is governed by the master of the spirit. The world became more and more furious. Of course, the anthropomorphic word furious may not be appropriate. It was just instinctively preventing the loss of power. The birth of the two gods of the dark night is about to come to an end, but Ryan also ushered in the last day of creation. He took off the priesthood of prophecy, he took off the priesthood of history, and finally, he took out the 3 oracle tablets. He threw the 3 into the origin of the new interface, and the spirit digested them in an instant. So the time and fate of the chaos world were shaken, and their source power was continuously injected into the new interface. Under the transformation of spiritual power, the oracle tablets were reborn in the world. From then on, the world of chaos no longer had a destined fate. What the spirit did not interfere with was destined, and what the spirit interfered with was unknown. Reaching out his hand, Ryan picked up the first slate. As at the beginning, there was a motto engraved on the stone tablet, "Know yourself." Ryan kept this line of words, but he wrote new content on it. Know the world, then know yourself. He used the power of memory to engrave everything he had witnessed since the beginning of creation on the stone tablet. He gave it history and engraved it with new words belonging to the spiritual world. In this way, a powerful artifact embryo was born. It symbolizes the past of the world and is a constant truth. Reaching out again, Ryan picked up the second stone tablet. There was also a line of words engraved on it: "Don't do anything excessively." He left this line of words and added a new motto: "Don't do anything excessively. The law is its standard." He engraved the calendar on it and all the rules between the interfaces on it. The content on it will change as the interface is improved. From this moment on, it is the code of creation. Finally, he picked up the third stone tablet. "Promises bring pain," this is the content on it. He erased this line of words and extracted the source power belonging to the most ancient text. Ryan put this slab aside before it was born. At this moment, in the root of the world, several artifacts are being nurtured. Some belong to life, some belong to time, and they are all creations born spontaneously from the origin. Ryan took a look and let them continue to be nurtured. Then, he stretched his hand out of the world, intercepted some blood foam dropped by the Father, and then sat in the center of the interface. All things in the world are complete, and he called this interface spirit world. There is night and morning, this is the seventh day. At the same time, outside the spirit world, the new interface has stabilized, and in the sky of the underworld, the figure of Mizzy quietly emerges. A step late. The black skirt swayed lightly, and the invisible power was released. The next moment, in front of this supreme figure, the entire underworld began to tremble slightly. Chapter 20, The Twin Gods of Dark Night. It's a miracle of creation. 7 layers of interface, each different. This is a new world that belongs to chaos, but has an independent origin. Beside the illusory moon, the gentle voice of Lady Night came. Just like herself, erratic, seemingly real and fake. She wore a black dress woven by the night. Anyone or God who saw it could only know that the person wearing it was beautiful, but how beautiful she was could only be described in dreams. Even Ryan only saw Nyx in the form of a girl by chance at the moment when the original gods were born. Apart from this, the appearance of this ancient god of creation has never been known to outsiders. She is like the night, mysterious and hazy. What a pity. Nyx said cruel words in a calm tone. If it was before, I could smash it. But now, its origin has been reshaped. Time and space and fate are combined by spirituality. Unless chaos is willing to give me all the remaining time and space source power, I can't touch it. Nyx can feel that the spiritual world is right in front of her, even covering most of the underworld. But it was useless because the two sides were separated by spirituality. Nyx could use the power of destiny to fix the trajectory of fate, but she did not have the power of time and space to break this barrier. In many cases, divine power is absolute. Even if her power is enough to shake the entire underworld, she cannot break this barrier, just like Zeus and later generations could not stop the hypnosis of the god of sleep. But chaos will not do this. Suddenly, a male voice whose age could not be heard came from the side of Mizzy. The voice was very steady, but the tone was somewhat mocking. Obviously, the speaker did not like chaos's instinctive consciousness. This is a world without self, just like our original body. It would rather be slowly sucked blood than understand what it means to stop the loss in time. That is the Dark Master Erebus. His existence is more secretive than Nyx. After all, he is the darkness itself. Maybe we can talk, Erebus said. Ryan knew that he was talking to himself. In the past, I ignored your existence because of your weakness. But the facts tell me that as an ancient god of creation older than us, your power is much stronger than you show. The Dark Lord said so, and he really thought so. As the oldest god, the original gods knew of Ryan's existence. But after they sensed Ryan's power, they no longer paid attention to him. If Uranus had not been interested in the weakest ancient god later, even the Earth Mother would not come to see Ryan, let alone a series of prophecies later. In the spiritual world, facing the invitation of the Dark Lord, Ryan was a little hesitant. From the origin, Ryan, who had just completed the creation, was extremely powerful. He plundered a lot of origin from the world, and even if he had not digested it, its strength was completely beyond his imagination. Especially the Oracle Slate, Ryan obtained a terrible amount of destiny and order power from it, and even a lot of miscellaneous power. For example, text is one of them. The characters engraved on the stone slab are older than Mnemosyne, the god of characters. Ryan used this power to create the spiritual text belonging to the spiritual world. The powerful origins are stacked on each other. In Ryan's perception, if the spirituality at this time is measured by the priesthood, it is close to the strength of Sky. Even when he fully digests this harvest, he can reach a higher level, but in fact, Ryan's power is not strong. Just like the original sea god Pontus, before his priesthood was divided, Ocean was not inferior to Sky, but he was never as good as Uranus. This is not the difference in priesthood, but the difference in actual strength. The priesthood determines the upper limit of the gods, and the level of divine power determines the current power of the gods. Ryan has a powerful origin, but now he is only at the 11th level of divine power like the newly born original sea god. If it was other gods outside, even Gaia, Ryan would dare to go out to meet, but the two gods of the Dark Night are different. The degree of personification of these two original gods is very shallow, so their power is much stronger. At this time, the inside and outside of the spirit world fell silent. After hesitating for a long time, Ryan finally gave up the idea of avoiding them. He couldn't stay in the spirit world forever and slowly accumulate divine power for tens of thousands of years. He still had a lot of things to do, not to mention that he had been born with the spirit world. Even if he was caught by the other party, the worst that could happen was that he would die once and his divine power would fall. As long as the spirit world was still there, he could reunite his divine body at any time, and the other party would not be able to trap him forever. But by that time, his feud with the two gods of the Dark Night would be a big one. Making up his mind, Ryan took a step forward. The next moment, his figure appeared outside the spirit world. The silver-white shadow turned from virtual to real, and the robe was dotted with lavender lines. Ryan stood in front of Ms. Yi and nodded to her. He was no longer the person he used to be. Even the original 5 gods were no longer worthy of his bowing. Anyway, Your Highness Nyx, and Your Highness Erebus, I'm sorry to have kept you waiting. I wonder what you want to say to me. Squinting her eyes slightly, Ms. Yi examined the young god in front of her. Unlike other male gods in the world at this time, Ryan did not have obvious muscles, nor did he wear simple clothes made of divine power. His silver-white robe looked very distinctive, and the whole person also had a different feeling. Haha, you are really surprising, Your Highness Ryan. You look out of place among the gods. I guess you were not like this in front of my poor sister before. Accompanied by a chuckle, Nyx's erratic voice sounded again. But for some reason, Ryan always felt that the other party was being sarcastic. Maybe, but if the Earth Mother could put down her arrogance earlier, maybe she would not have ended up like this. Besides, I don't see where you and the Earth Mother have a sisterly love. With a chuckle, Ryan did not comment on Ms. Yi's evaluation. When you are still weak, you always have to be one with the light. If he had the power he has now, Ryan would not have to work so hard on prophecy. Just like if he were a great god now, even if the Dark Night gods perceived the will of the world, they would just pretend not to hear it. However, Your Highness Erebus, please forgive me for being rude. Ryan said with a smile. His tone was a bit casual, but can you please come out and talk? I'm really not used to talking to invisible gods. Since you invited me, I should come out to meet you. You're right, I'm rude. The next moment when the voice of the Dark Lord fell, Ryan saw his appearance. The black hood covered his body, and the black was different from Nyx's black dress. The color of the black dress was more like a changing black, and the hood of the Dark Lord was more like a black hole. It has no color itself, but it is compared with the surroundings, so that everyone knows that it is black. With a frown, Ryan found that Erebus did not actually hide his whereabouts. He has been standing there, but his presence is too weak, so weak that it seems as if he does not exist. Compared to Nyx's impolite words, he came up to smash it, and this Dark Lord is really difficult to deal with. This move in front of him was undoubtedly a show of strength, but Ryan had to take it, because for him, this ability to hide was more fearful than pure power. The only 3 beings in the world who had the power of hiding were gathered here at this moment. One could hide secrets with history, and the other could cover up secrets with the night. Only Erebus, darkness itself, was a secret. After a little thought, Ryan spread his hands. The spiritual light emerged and turned into thousands of newborn light spots. This is the embryo of the soul. As long as the divine power is used to shape it, a nymph or a demon can be created. And this is also the gift prepared by Ryan. The gods should be noble. Ryan said, they can obey whoever they want, but they should not serve whoever they want. Treating your children as servants will eventually lead to bad consequences. The embryo of the soul, a small gift, may the tragedy of the father never reappear in the eternal night. The only thing that can respond to a threat is probably another threat. And the only thing that makes the original god afraid in this world is probably the uncertain fate. Ryan's meaning is very clear. If you can't kill me, then you should think carefully about the consequences of being my enemy. Chapter 21, Return Gift. Thank you for your gift. It seemed that he did not hear the implication of Ryan's words, and the expression of the Lord of Darkness did not change. He just paused and reached out to take the light spot in Ryan's hand. Different from the myths of later generations, when the spiritual Lord is born, there will be no life in this world without his permission. Because everything that has a soul must have a spirit, and anything that has a spirit does not need to have a soul, so the soul is contained in the spirit. In the original trajectory, even without the help of Eapachus, the Lord of Souls, natural spirits like nymphs could still be born in the world. But now, without Ryan's permission, only the gods can become exceptions. God is different after all. The structure of the gods is very strange, and Ryan doesn't quite understand its inner mysteries. What about mine? Mizzy, who was watching from the sidelines, suddenly spoke. Ryan was a little surprised. He thought the couple had a close relationship. After all, there had never been a tragedy like Gaia's between them. Don't look at me like that. Nyx noticed Ryan's surprise, and she explained with some dissatisfaction, he and I are not husband and wife. Those divine sons are the offspring of our bodies. I thought the prophet knew everything minus. Ryan was really surprised this time. Whether it is the myths of later generations or the history witnessed by Ryan in this life, Lady Yi rarely appears in the world. His so-called understanding of Nyx was more of a guess. No wonder the two gods of the Dark Night don't seem to care much about their own children, and they have never received the treatment that the ancient gods deserved. It turns out that in their view, these so-called descendants are just the products of the original being inspired by the world. Ryan, who witnessed the process of personification of the original gods with his own eyes, knew very well that for the ancient gods who already had self-awareness, the ontology in themselves were really not equated. This is why even though Ryan often talks about Anak, he never cares about it. The three phases of ontology and personal incarnation cannot be equated. Nyx can indeed mobilize the power of destiny, but she herself cannot actually see the complete destiny. I'm really sorry, this was my oversight. Ignoring Nyx's sarcasm, Ryan used his spiritual power to condense thousands more soul embryos. He caused the embryos to drift toward Lady Night, but in addition, they had a glowing bauble in their midst. Through the changing veil, Nyx seemed to tug at the corner of her mouth, but she still reached out and took it. Never forget to snatch it from the hands of chaos, Mizzy said again, looking nothing like the original ancient god. You are really good at running a house. There is no other way. As long as the world respects the sovereignty of the gods over the priesthood, I will not make such a move. Ryan did not shy away from his purpose. He wanted to occupy the origin of some stars in front of the star gods. But this one was a bit special, so he hoped that Ms. Yi could hang it up herself. The current Earth Mother, the Sea God, the future Sun God, and even the Moon priesthood that I once controlled. Whenever I see them torn apart by the power of the world in the future, I will worry about escaping the control of the world. Fortunately, I succeeded. Physical stars will still be born, but the concept of them being stars will be eliminated and they will become luminous celestial bodies corresponding to Kuz, the god of lightless celestial bodies. In the present, starlight is not much different from pure light, but in the future, Ryan himself will give them a difference. But I can hang it up later. Mizzy said bluntly, as long as the corresponding god is born, your theft will not be effective. Yes, if that's what you're going to do, then so be it. Ryan spread his hands and didn't care. Chaos's uncertain fate is already completely in the spiritual world. Not to mention the origin of fate absorbed during the birth process, the spiritual world and even Ryan itself are products that should not appear in fate. So if Nyx wants to wait for the corresponding god to be born, she probably won't be able to wait until the world is destroyed. Snort. Nyx was a little angry, and she didn't need to hide her emotions. On the side, the Lord of Darkness laughed a little, but he still tried to persuade him. Okay, Nyx, since you're still here, I think your thoughts and mine should be the same. Let's get to the point, Lord of the Spirit World. We want to know how you seized the source of power from the hands of the world. No god wants to be controlled, it's just that they didn't know this option existed before. But Ryan's success undoubtedly allowed them to see the direction, which is why Nyx and Erebus are still here. They also want to follow suit and become gods beyond the control of the world. It's very simple. Faced with the Dark Lord's inquiry, Ryan said without any secrets. Have an origin beyond the control of the world, connect it with time, space and destiny, and throw yourself into it as the first material, and the world is born. The void that carries the world, the matter and spirituality that make up all things, plus destiny, these are the four pillars of the world. The body of a god can replace spirituality and matter to a certain extent, which is also the reason why the spiritual world has been successfully opened. The question is, how did you obtain the origin beyond the control of the world? Nyx was very dissatisfied with Ryan's explanation. What he said was complete nonsense, like 3 steps to lock an elephant in the refrigerator. If she had such an origin, why would she ask him? Then I have no choice. This is innate. I was born earlier than you know this. Faced with Ms. Yi's questioning, Ryan smiled and shook his head. Why do you think that as the first ancient god, my power is so weak? It can't be because the world doesn't like me, then why did it give birth to me? Nyx was silent. She hadn't thought about this question before. But now she also reacted. In chaos, the strong may not be old, but the old ones are mostly strong. Erebus was also a little disappointed. If this is only related to the time of birth, then he really has no solution. Just like the original gods have a part of the world as their body, they can freely choose the degree of personification, but the new gods later can't do this anyway. So if Ryan's specialness is also because he was born early enough, then Erebus can only accept it. It seems that we will return empty-handed today. Erebus sighed. He didn't intend to pester. After all, when Ryan successfully opened up the spiritual world, the other party was destined to become an existence equal to him. With the degree of personification of Erebus, he exists in the form of his original body most of the time, so he doesn't want to do anything to Ryan. After all, Ryan didn't steal the origin of darkness. Chaos belongs to everyone, and his Erebus is his own. This matter has nothing to do with him. Even before leaving, he planned to give a gift to ease his blocking behavior. Your Highness Ryan, I'm sorry for disturbing you today. To express my apology, I also have a gift for you. Erebus stretched out his hand and a ball of black mist appeared in his hand. The black mist rolled and changed, but in the hands of the Dark Master, it had no possibility of escaping control. Ryan felt vaguely that this seemed to be an extreme emotion. These are the negative emotions of my nephew. They shook the origin of the world and made me give birth to many offspring for this. I was still worrying about how to deal with them before, now, it's yours. Taking the black mist, Ryan felt the most intense emotion before the God King lost his position. This is not just negative emotion, but also the hatred of the father for the son and the murderous intention of the king for the rebellion. Simple emotion is not terrible, but when it is born at the moment when the God King changes his master, it becomes even more powerful. This kind of emotional power is really useless to the Dark Lord. Maybe his children can use it, but Erebus obviously doesn't really regard them as his own children. As for Ryan, when the spirit world transforms these emotions, he can use them to forge a divine weapon or derive a monster that can threaten the true God. When facing the 12 titans, they may have a different effect. Thank you for your return gift. Putting away the black mist, Ryan smiled and said, it's really a pleasant meeting. Huh? In response, Ms. Yi snorted coldly, and the Dark Lord smiled in response. In any case, this conflict that could have broken out ended peacefully in the end. Chapter 22, Enfeoffment. Half an hour later, in the spirit world. After chatting with the 2 ancient gods for a few more words, Ryan said goodbye to them one by one. If it weren't for the birth of the Son of God and the call of the world, it would be difficult to see these 2 house gods come out for 1,000 years. Most of the time, they still exist in the form of their original bodies. After parting, Ryan took a step forward, passed through the 7 layers of time and space barriers, and returned to the core of the spirit world. As the master of the spirit world, Ryan created the world in 7 days, so the spirit world was divided into 7 layers from deep to shallow. The concept of the moon was also divided into 7, hanging in the 7 layers of the spirit world. The deep layer can see the moon of the shallow layer, but the shallow layer cannot see the deep layer. So Ryan stood in the core of the spirit world and 7 different spirit moons hung in the sky together. When it was first designed, Ryan made each moon 2 color. It can be either silver or its own color. In the future, he will give them different symbols. However, the newborn spirit world cannot do this, so the 7 moons at this time are presented in the same color. Looking around, the barrier between the 7 layers of the spirit world could not block the sight of its owner. The interface was still very empty at this time. Except for the 2 outermost layers of the spirit world, there was life, and the 5 inner layers were empty. This was also the limitation of Ryan's current ability. He could only create relatively orderly life. The outer the layer, the more stable the time sequence, and the inner the layer, the more chaotic the time sequence. So except for the last batch of creatures created, only the two outermost layers of the spirit world can provide ordinary spirits with survival. Of course, as the core of the spirit world, where Ryan lived, the order of this nameless mountain was absolutely stable. Its predecessor was the spine of Ryan's divine body, which penetrated the 7 layers of the spirit world at the level of time and space. This will also be the location of Ryan's future palace. After admiring his creation, Ryan casually pinched a chair. He sat on it and called the creatures he created. "Lyanna. I'm here, Your Highness." As Ryan's voice fell, a girl with wings on her back responded to the call of the creator. She has a human-like appearance, but her silver wings undoubtedly prove her extraordinary identity. In the spirit world, it should be she and her sisters who have powers similar to regional gods and can handle many things for Ryan. Ryan called them Christo, which means transparent, non-deceiving souls. As sacred creatures created on the 6th day, there are 18 of them, and Lyanna is their leader. According to Ryan's judgment, they are not demigods because they have the same essence as true gods. But they are not true gods either, because they have no priesthood. They are a bit like the ocean goddesses of later generations. Although they are gods, they are not even weak divine power. Divine power level 0, this is their state. "I have something for you to do." Looking at the girl kneeling in front of him, Ryan said gently. Now, the projection of the spirit world outside is the underworld moon. The light of the 7 crescent moons shines on the underworld through the projection in turn. Therefore, chaos's concepts and origins related to the underworld moon converge to the spirit world, but it will take at least 2,000 years to complete this process. I can't wait that long. So I need someone to operate the authority of the underworld moon. She will take over this priesthood on my behalf, which will greatly speed up the gathering of concepts. Serving you is the meaning of my existence. Lyanna responded without hesitation. Facing her creator, she had no intention of refusing. Very good. Ryan nodded. He stretched out his hand and the concept of underworld moon that had been enriched in the spirit world surged towards him. Soon, a crystal-clear multifaceted crystal appeared in his hand. With a finger of his right hand, the crystal instantly sank into Lyanna's body. The next moment, a power belonging to the true god surged from her body. "From today on, you are the goddess of the dark moon," Ryan announced calmly. As the voice fell, Lyanna's divine power rose steadily and finally stopped at around divine power level 2. The upper limit of the dark moon priesthood is now divine power level 5. But if Lyanna can gather all the origins related to chaos, then with this priesthood alone, she can enter the realm of medium divine power. At that time, Ryan will naturally lend her a hand and help her go one step further and become the real top god of chaos. With divinity flowing into his eyes, Ryan observed the process of Lyanna's fusion of the priesthood. At this moment, his behavior is similar to canonizing a subordinate god, but not completely similar. Lyanna is to him, just like the gods are to chaos. When this priesthood was canonized, he not only did not feel the decline of power, but also accelerated the digestion of the chaotic origin. This time he harvested too much source power, and even now, the origins of the dark moon, stars, etc. are still pouring into the spirit world. According to Ryan's prediction, it would take at least thousands of years for him to completely digest and unify these powers. But now, with the canonization of the goddess of the underworld moon, the concepts related to the underworld moon were directly digested by him at a speed 10 times faster. "Esther. I'm here, Your Highness." This was the second sacred life he created. This time Ryan didn't say much, but directly took out hundreds of light balls. At this time, he could sense that the star symbolizing uncertain fate had been hung up by Mizzy, and the remaining stars should also appear. These stars are strictly speaking just projections, and their bodies are still in the spirit world. Just like the light of the 7 crescent moons shines on the earth through the underworld moon in the outside world, the starlight in the spirit world will also shine in the sky of chaos along with their projections. Until the birth of the real star gods, they will continue to seize the source power of chaos stars and strengthen themselves after transformation in the spiritual world. If the star gods are born late enough, perhaps Ryan does not need to pour power into them, and these illusory stars will be more powerful than real stars. With a light finger, another multifaceted crystal fell into Esther's body, and Ryan's voice also sounded. "I order you to spread the stars all over the night sky and let the starlight shine through the earth. From today on, you are Star Spreader Starlight Goddess." The divine power surged again, but this time, Esther barely became a weak divine power of divine power level 1. Compared with the dark moon, the authority of star spreading and starlight is still a little weak. But it doesn't matter, Ryan feels that his digestion of the origin of the stars has also accelerated. Then, Ryan canonized the 12 star gods in turn. Each of them has a star, corresponding to the 12 months. Ryan gave the concept of months to these stars as well as the plant growth and climate change affected by different months. With the birth of 12-week divine powers, Ryan's digestion of star power has further accelerated and his integration of time power has also accelerated. With a wave of his hand, the 14 new goddesses withdrew immediately. Ryan did not continue to canonize gods because he could feel that the more powerful the priesthood, the more requirements there are for the canonized object itself. As his first creation, Christo, Lyanna could barely bear the incomplete phantom moon, but the priesthoods of order, history, spiritual plants, spiritual creatures and even time, space and life are not something Ryan's creations can easily bear. Maybe Lyanna can slowly improve her essence and bear stronger priesthoods if she stays in the position of true god for thousands of years, but now, Ryan can only stop first. As his mind turned, time and space formed a round mirror in front of him. Through the mirror, Ryan saw the scenery on the earth at this time. It seems like a long time has passed, but in fact, from the opening of the spirit world to now, only a little more than a day has passed in the outside world. At this time, under the sky, the war between Uranus and the Titans is still going on. God's blood flows on the ground like a river, and the power of the Father is less than 30% of his heyday. Although his momentum is still brave, the result of this dispute is difficult to change. The end of an era. Whispering softly, Ryan pulled a roll of canvas woven with moonlight. He mixed some pigments with the blood of the god king he collected before and placed it on the round table next to the chair. Let's call Chaos's first painting Death of the God King. As a god, Uranus will not die. But as the oldest god king, today is his destined end. Chapter 23, Curse. Boom minus minus. Another punch, and Iapachus lay on the ground, unable to move. Although the power rising from the earth blocked most of the impact for him, his divine power was still too weak. With just the priesthood of speech, he couldn't even take a casual blow from Uranus. Divine power level 7, which is completely unlike the power an ancient titan should have. If it weren't for the immortality of the gods, he would have been torn to pieces at the first moment of the war. Ah, help. Boom minus minus. Without looking, the god of speech knew that it was his equally weak sister, Mnemosyne, the god of language and writing. Language is as weak as speech. As for writing, the 3 lines of mottos on the oracle tablet are the real source of writing. They are the only weak divine powers on the battlefield, and the only value of their existence is to rely on their immortal divine bodies to take a few more punches from Father God for their brothers. As the offspring of a heavenly father and an earthly mother, they were born with weak divine powers. However, because of their weak priesthood, the 2 of them have remained almost unchanged for thousands of years. After all, Mnemosyne still had an object of hatred. She discovered the culprit behind her loss of memory priesthood, the mysterious ancient god Ryan. But Ipetus, he could only accept his weak status. Tier minus. Struggling to get up, the god of speech watched as a leg of his original eldest brother Oceanus was torn off. This was the 4th time he had lost a limb. The divine power of the ocean is endless, and the power of the sky is not good at preventing recovery, so every time a limb is torn off, the Lord of the Ocean can quickly recover. But it didn't mean anything, it just made him suffer a few more times. Apart from Cronus, Oceanus, who personally threw the organs of his heavenly father into the sea, attracted the greatest hatred. Even though he is powerful, he is still vulnerable. Obviously, the Lord of the Sky told him with facts that some gods are powerful because he barely has this level, and some gods are powerful because the last step is too difficult to cross. The earth cracked open and the land at its edges turned into fragments and scattered across the sea, creating islands. The celestial bodies fell and the lightless celestial bodies fell on the earth, bringing veins of minerals and creating valleys and hills. This war has lasted for 7 days and 7 nights. Except on the first day, there were inexplicably more glowing celestial bodies in the sky. The entire world was constantly being destroyed. But finally, in a certain collision, Oceanus was surprised to find that although he was knocked away by God the Father, he did not seem to be more seriously injured. What? What? 2 exclamations sounded at the same time. The Lord of the Oceans was amazed that he remained intact, while Uranus was furious at the decline of his power. On the side, Cronus, who was constantly dealing with Father God with the help of the power of time and space, finally smiled. With most of his origin being swallowed up by the spirit world, even if he borrowed power from the passing time with the help of Rhea's power, he still couldn't hold on. The other titans were just traumatized. but he had very little of his true nature left. If he cannot obtain the position of God King, the remaining space-time source power will not even allow him to maintain the power of medium divine power. In order to prevent his brothers from having bad thoughts, he did not even dare to show his weakness. Only his sister Rhea noticed some clues. But the two of them had always been close to each other in the Titans, so the goddess didn't know. Fortunately, fate was still on his side. Cronus defeated his father and persisted until the last moment. Ha 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 ha. You can't hold on any longer, my cruel father. Hidden behind time and space, Cronus's laughter spread across the earth. He made no secret of his joy. This was the only good news he had received recently. Really? Uranus sneered. He looked at his once youngest son, now his eldest son. He regretted not discovering his ambition in advance, but it was too late. The power of the gods is so long-lasting. Even if it takes 7 years, I will not be exhausted, let alone 7 days. Hearing this, the Titans couldn't help but panic. They did not question Uranus's words. Because this was the power of the gods. Even if they continue to be injured, they can still fight for several more months. As the Lord of the Sky who has far greater divine power than them and has always had the absolute upper hand, 7 years is not an exaggeration. But can they persist for 7 years? At this moment, the majesty of the Heavenly Father seemed to gain the upper hand in their hearts again, but the betrayal prevented them from begging for mercy from their father. After all, with Uranus's character, the Titans who committed such a rebellious act would not be forgiven by him. But at this time, Cronus spoke, and his voice was even playful. If it is under normal circumstances, it is indeed as you said, my father God. The god of time and space had a mocking smile on his lips. 7 days had passed and he finally realized what the transforming power his father was fighting against. He couldn't help but thank fate again. The gods are immortal and he dare not shut his father, who symbolizes the sky, into the abyss. But as long as this power of transformation exists, Uranus will fall into eternal sleep. Unless he is so arrogant that he is even willing to change his gender in order to survive in the world. But this was impossible. Cronus knew very well that his father would rather die than accept such humiliation. You are the original father, Cronos laughed more wantonly, so you are different from other gods. When the symbol of your male god disappears, you can't use your divine power to reshape it. Because it is not only your organ, but also the representative of all your masculine power. Without it, there is no masculine power in your body, right, my dear father god? Or should I call you dear mother god? Ha 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 ha. Uranus's face looked ugly for the first time in his laughter. The other Titans seemed to understand something and began to look at their father with strange eyes. Shut up. You rebellious. You are the rebel. Cronos sneered and interrupted his father's scolding. He raised the knife and looked at his father. He used to be so powerful, but now he only has verbal attacks. Cronos was a little emotional, but then he felt the emptiness in his body, and he no longer hesitated. You betrayed the mother goddess and chaos will. Your atrocities should have been punished long ago. I, Cronos, the Lord of time and space, pronounce in the name of the future God King that the god of the sky is guilty and should be punished with eternal sleep. The sentence is forever. The next moment, the distance seemed to be non-existent in front of him. He was clearly thousands of miles away from the father, but his knife pierced through Uranus's heart the next moment. The Lord of the Sky tried to stop him, but this time, his invincible divine power failed to break the slowness of the power of time. In front of the gods, he was pierced by the sickle and his blood fell to the ground. I won, father. Cronos said softly in a voice that only the two of them could hear. You won. Haha, maybe. Feeling the increasingly drastic changes in his body, Uranus knew that unless he was really willing to be distorted by the world, he could only use sleep to resist the transformation. But at the last moment, the proud Lord of the Sky still did not bow his head. He looked at his child with cold eyes. His voice was also very soft, but every creature under the sky could hear it clearly. Cronos, my child, I hope you remember. You can win once, but you can't win all the time. Where everything starts, it will end. Yes, the prophecy is like this. I am like this, and you will be like this too. Looking at Cronos's suddenly angry expression, the father laughed happily for the last time. I curse you. He said, you will be overthrown by your child like me. The top of the sky is my destination. And Tartarus is your future. Cronos, I am waiting for you, my child. Dang. The sickle fell to the ground, but no one cared. In front of them, the personified image of Uranus disappeared. He turned into an invisible airflow, following the body when he was born all the way up to an unfathomable height. The sky began to separate from the earth, and the two that used to be often connected would never meet again. From then on, the distance between heaven and earth was immeasurable, and even the gods could not fathom its height. The story of chaos, the first generation of the God King, the ruler of the sky, ended today. I will be the new king. With a blank expression, Kronos picked up the fallen sickle and looked at his brother. Who is in favor and who is against? Chapter 25, New King. No one dared to look at Kronos at this moment. Even Hyperion and Oceanus, who had thought about the throne of the God King, were silent at this moment. The curse of Uranus before leaving was heard clearly by the gods. If it was any other curse, they would not take it to heart, but the one just now was different. Not only because of the object of the curse, but also because it reminded them of the warning given by the existence that was still considered to be the god of prophecy in the underworld hundreds of years ago. You will rise with this, and you will fall with this. Kronos used his son to plot against his father, and used weapons to obtain the throne. Does it also indicate that he will be betrayed by his own children and lose his royal power under force? No one knows, but no one dares to guarantee that this will not happen. You know, the throne of the God King of the Father is given by the world, so pure force cannot replace him. But if Kronos becomes the God King, this throne obtained by force will no longer be endorsed by the world. But in any case, time does not stop because of the silence of the gods. When no gods in the world raised objections to Kronos' position as the God King, power began to shift to him in the dark. Since there is no orthodox God King recognized by the world, a leader recognized by the gods is barely feasible. If no one challenges Kronos within 500 years, he will be the second generation of God King of Chaos. During this period, although he cannot fully enjoy the authority of the God King, the powerful power has begun to transfer to him. Children, you have won. In silence, the scarred Earth Mother came from a distance. In the previous battle, she suffered no less damage than her children. It's just that she did not appear on the front battlefield, but constantly mobilized the power of the earth to block the downward pressure of the sky. She also heard the curse just now, but she still acted as if she didn't hear it. At such a moment, she didn't want to worry about the future that she didn't know how long it would be. Hearing this, the gods all reacted. They no longer had a stern face, but began to celebrate the victory and Kronos' enthronement. No matter what they thought in their hearts, facing the strongest among the Titans, Kronos, who was holding a high-level artifact, they all expressed their recognition of his position as the king of gods. You are right, Mother. We should hold a banquet to celebrate today's victory. Listening to the congratulations of the gods, Kronos forced a smile and said to the Titans, "But I think we should deal with one thing first, Kronos." Suddenly, Mnemosyne on the side spoke. Her body was still covered with blood, and her wounds slowly recovered under the power of God. She came from a pit in the distance, where she had smashed the pit herself. But at this moment, Mnemosyne seemed to have forgotten the pain, and she looked at her former brother, now her eldest brother, with anger on her face. That god of prophecy, that thief. He stole my priesthood of memory. You all felt it, right at the beginning of the battle, chaos consciousness exposed his disguise. He is the god of spirituality, and he did something that angered the world. We should punish him, she said, in Hades, where the world consciousness tells the gods. Yes, before celebrating the victory, we should punish a sinner. Epotus also supported. He thought everyone would think so. After all, it was Ryan's prophecy that made everyone suffer. But unexpectedly, after him, no one took over his words, and everyone's expressions were a little embarrassed. Ahem, my brother. Hyperion said, the world's consciousness only appeared 7 days ago. Even if we punish him now, we won't get a reward. Yes, Chaos's consciousness is always so rigid. When his offense to the world is completed, the world's reward for him will be cancelled. Theseus also echoed. This eldest sister of the Titan rarely speaks. But what about my priesthood? Mnemosyne was a little confused. Is it necessary to discuss punishing a weak prophecy god? Even if there is no reward from the world, it is fine to simply use him to reflect the majesty of the new court of gods. I want him to be my subordinate god. The priesthood cannot be transferred, but the main god and the subordinate god can borrow for a long time. The corner of Kronos' mouth twitched. The priesthood cannot be transferred, and he thought so at the beginning. But he is not as simple as we think, Mnemosyne. The Lord of the Ocean did not seem to want to beat around the bush. He said directly to his sister, "Just 7 days ago, when we were still fighting with the Father God, the two people in the land of eternal night went to the underworld. The power of the two of you is too weak, so you can't sense it." On the previous birthday of the god, the two primitive ancient gods used the origin to speed up the birth of the new god. Obviously, they are going to cause trouble for the god of spirituality. Hearing this, Epictetus said no more. He understood what his brother meant. If the two primordial gods took action personally, either Ryan had been thrown into the abyss and accepted the punishment of the world's will, then they would not be able to find anyone. Or the other party used some method to make the two gods of the night return empty-handed. In that case, they would not have any solution. Including Gaia, all the gods here now combined are not enough for the Dark Master to beat with one hand. After all, the other party's power can compete with Uranus at his peak, and what they faced before was only the Father of Heaven, whose power was greatly damaged and less than 30% of his peak. That's it. After looking at his sister, who was still a little unwilling, Kronos didn't want to delay any longer. If possible, he wanted to attack the guy who devoured his origin more than anyone else, but now he could only give up. Not to mention the other party's usual mysterious style and the means to make the original god give in, the other party's prophecy alone made him sleepless. He now understands his father. The father used the Titans as toys countless times, but never took action against Ryan. This is the deterrence brought by the mysterious fate. Other Titans cannot care, after all, they did not ask Ryan for a prophecy, but Kronos is different. He began to regret why he asked Ryan about his future before. If he didn't know, he would at least not be in such a dilemma as he is now. Let's go back to Mount Odysseus. Mother's creations are always so delicious. The mood was a little more depressed. The future god king, who should have been in high spirits at this moment, forced himself to look happier and then flew towards the sacred mountain first. "Let's go. We'll talk about the priesthood later." Looking at her sister, Rhea, the only one who was somewhat aware of Kronos' condition, also said. Seeing that everyone said so, Mnemosyne had to suppress her reluctance and chose to fly to the sacred mountain with the Titans. She didn't dare to act alone. Even the previous Ryan was the god of time with a power level of 9, and he was much more powerful than her, the god of language and writing, with a power level of 8. The gods left one after another, and when the war of gods ended, the earth returned to peace. As time passed, it slowly recovered from the damage it had suffered. Half a day later, on Mount Odylus, a banquet to celebrate the accession of the new king began.